You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers.
Welcome to Java OffHeap episode 60. Hey everyone, this is Freddie Jvm. I'm here with my usual suspects to bring you the latest Java news and discussion topics for OffHeap. For those who don't know me, my name is Freddie Jvm. I'm principal engineer at Expedia, speaker, author, co-organizer of the Seattle Java User Group, and Java Champion. And I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hey everybody, Bob Paulin, independent consultant from Chicago, Apache Software Foundation member, Java Champion, and CJUG board chair.
My name is Josh Juno. I'm a Java EE, Jakarta EE developer. I'm a DBA as well by day. I am a member of the Jakarta EE ambassadors, author, speaker, and CJUG board member.
Hi, it's Michael Manella, member of the Spring Engineering team, author, speaker, Java Champion, also the chairman of the board of the Reactive Foundation in Curmudgeon.
Ooh, that's new, right?
It is. Like,
oh, congrats, my friend. And I have such a long list of requests that are going to come your way. So.
please bring them on.
Free consulting is what Freddie heard.
Oh, yes. Well, so there's two parts. The first one is if you don't see Josh, it's because we anger the internet gods, and he is actually just coming through what is this old technology called like cell phones. So, so he's actually here. He's actually with us. So he's like the like Lord Overlord deity voice, giving reason to what we talk.
I think he's just internet impaired because of his five kids. Downloads.
They're at that age. Like they're running torrents. And then Michael discovered an interesting fact for today's, which is episode 60.
60 means this is 5 years worth of episodes. I realize that this isn't the actual anniversary from a date perspective, but it's 5. So pretty cool milestone. Thanks for sticking with us. For those of you who are suffering through this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Technically, we've been lazy some parts of the year where we don't have once every month. That's why it's not exactly 5 years. But I still remember, it was such a fun time. Just like the way this started. For those who don't know, was we'll take a Chicago Java Users Group meetup and we'll take the train together. And then take the train back because we used to live around the same parts, and we just talk tech, like we just geek out on the train. And at a point in time, we thought this was so interesting, we should just do the same thing and click record, and that's how essentially OffHeap was born. One of the things that we always wanted to make sure is that we had beers, so we wanted to do it at a bar, and that's how we started at the infamous Roundhouse. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to go to the Roundhouse so bad.
We do too, and we're local to it.
Yeah, I know. Right. I know. It's like, hurry up, 2021. There's a queue.
We can still get their beer in Illinois, but have not been in person there since all this started.
Is it even open? Like
it is. It's survived so far. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We'll make the 5.5 years special when we can travel, and then we'll record it again. That'll be a special episode.
Summer, we can record it outside there at the Roundhouse.
Oh, that'll be amazing! Yes, we did that twice. That was fun. All right. Before we dive in, we wanted to thank the sponsors of this episode. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 400 technologies, including AWS services, Docker, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility in your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of the podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. And again, that URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. We thank them for keeping the microphones on and the cameras rolling and the beer flowing for us to record this episode. So thank you for their sponsorship and give them a shot. All right. So let's dive into it. What are the news for this episode's agenda, or what is the agenda for this episode?
Well, I think we're starting with events. So new events for this month. ApacheCon will be again virtual this year in September 21st to September 23rd. But the reason we're announcing it so early is because the call for proposals is open now, actually. So they've got a number of tracks. So tracks on big data, Cassandra, community, content delivery, fintech, and Finerac, geospatial, Groovy, incubation, integration, IoT, Carafe, observability, RDF and linked data, Royale, search, Tomcat, social data, drill, content management, API and microservice, and other.
Wow. Okay. So here's
we have a track for everyone.
Okay. Is there going to be a track for NFTs? So for those who don't know, NFT is, what is it? Non-fungible tokens?
Yep.
And is the idea that you can record an event, so you can sign certain things like, I guess, digital art or like digital things, and it's weird. It's like, and you transact it on cryptocurrency. Like that is like 2 layers of weird already. So yeah, it's
maybe in fintech then. No, so that's the first I've heard that.
Is there a Bitcoin
I don't see any
track?
open source around that.
Is there a Bitcoin track?
There's not. There's very little actually in the Apache ecosystem around Bitcoin, as far as
it might be a good thing. Like, I don't know if we should encourage Bitcoin on the Apache. It can roll into the financial
donate
track.
Bitcoin to the foundation, but yeah, I don't know that we have a ton of. Actually, that's an interesting point. As far as Apache Software Foundation, there is not a ton of blockchain or like Bitcoin focused projects in the foundation. So you have found a gap. Someone must fill it.
But
leveler heads are prevailing in the Apache Foundation.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the way we should go. Like, yeah, we should create the Bitcoin track, but yeah, no.
Commons blockchain.
No, and the thing is, like, the non-fungible tokens, they are actually like, I think the last one was 60 million for some like artwork from Benny, some digital artist. And it was like 60 million for not even the rights to the stuff. It was for the transaction that somebody bought something. But technically anyone can just copy the JPEGs and put it somewhere else, and that's fine. Like,
okay.
it's weird. I think we should like dive into it once it blows over. But knowing how the world is probably gonna be like something we have to deal with for the rest of our life.
I thought it was baseball cards was the hot thing now. So going back to my mom's house and trying to dig
Pokemon
up
cards.
Old ones. Yeah.
Pokemon cards.
Oh no, for real?
Oh, so there was a box of Pokemon cards that was sold a month or 2 ago for $400K.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Yep. My sister-in-law works for him, so.
Oh gosh. I did invest a small fortune because my kids play Pokemon, so I gotta go and maybe see if I can recoup some of that.
It's the highest grossing media franchise in history.
It really?
Yes.
Oh, I think I
Star
heard
Wars,
that.
above
Yes.
Mickey Mouse, it's above them all.
Wow.
Pokemon, and it's by a lot.
Like twice, right? Something like that.
It's in the ballpark. I think it's double Star Wars. Yeah.
And that's in a short period of time, too. That's crazy.
That's right. Pokemon.
Highest grossing media franchises, according to Wikipedia, Pokemon, year of inception, 1996. Estimated total revenue, $100 billion.
Wow.
Hello Kitty is number 2. Hello Kitty is number 2. Winnie the Pooh is number 3. Now, what's interesting about the number 2 and number 3, Pokemon year of inception 1996, Hello Kitty year of inception 1974, Winnie the Pooh year of inception 1924.
Really?
Winnie the Pooh is from the 20s? Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that.
He hasn't aged.
There's actually a really cool book my daughter has. It's about the story of Winnie the Pooh. And it doesn't start with Christopher Robin. It actually starts with a soldier out of Canada. Really? So Winnie the Pooh is based on an actual bear.
Really?
So what happened was there was a soldier in Canada. I kid you not. I could go grab the book. There's a soldier in Canada who was on his way to World War II. On the train ride to the coast, he stopped at a train station, and there's a trapper there with a bear cub, and he bought it off for $20. He took the bear with him on the military trip all the way to England, and as basically the regiment's or whatever's pet. And they've got pictures of him with it, and like it's legit. And so when he finally got called up to go to the front lines, he took him to the London Zoo and donated the bear to the London Zoo. And they've got the picture of the card of when he was donated and all that in the book.
Yeah.
That's where his part of the story ends. But that's where Christopher Robin begins. Christopher Robin's father would take Christopher Robin to the zoo, and he actually would play with that bear at the zoo.
Wow.
And then that inspired him to name his stuffed animal Winnie the Pooh and go from there.
Wow.
It's a really cool story.
It's a long string of events that is like all interconnected. But it's always fun to like hear that. Now I have to dig into that book. I'll put it on my to-do list. All right. So
this week in Disney's podcast, we're your
Sorry, we're a Disney Winnie the Pooh family.
If you know Michael, that really could be another podcast.
You realize that this is Disney behind me.
I was wondering, what was this from?
This is from Spaceship Earth in Epcot.
Nice.
This is actually the Phoenicians when they invented books. But actually, if we want to be podcast appropriate, I'll switch back to this one that I've been using, which is same ride, The Dawn of Computing.
Ooh.
Awesome.
And who's that scientist?
No idea. I want to get the next scene on this ride, which is Woz in the garage building the Apple.
Oh, Woz like Apple? Nice.
Yep.
And know that Jeremy Irons was the best narrator for this ride.
Oh, I didn't know
who
who the narrator was.
Well, you know that? It was long ago, but it was good.
I remember in the beginning Walter Cronkite narrating it.
I remember Walter Cronkite too. I mean, I remember hearing it. I didn't write it back then.
Yeah, I did. I remember it.
Wow. I want to go to Epcot. All the places that I haven't been able to go. All right. Let's go back on track. Okay, so the Apache account is what is it? The comfort papers are open September 21 to 23rd.
And it is remote, so no worries about travel or anything else. If you've got stuff to talk about from Apache open source ecosystem, which does not include Bitcoin and all those other things Disney and all those other things we talked about.
NFTs, man, NFTs. That's where the money is at. All right. Next one is, I guess, an announcement at release. Micronaut 2.0. Yeah.
Micronaut 2.4.0 was released recently. And this release in particular, let me pull it up. A couple of the things that are included with this release.
Ooh, and
it's a couple of the things. One of the big things is that it improves performance on writing generated classes. They bumped Micronaut data to a new version. They're adding coherence bill of material, and then they're bumping Micronaut Rabbit MQ. Lots of little fixes in this release. It looks like that change list is quite long. One of the bug fixes is serializing JSON with records should now respect JSON ignore. So I guess that one was not happening before.
Do not store passwords. Yes.
So this will be a good release to get. Just came out a few days ago with respect to the recording date here. So.
Yeah, no, and that is interesting because like again, like Micronaut is essentially an answer to Spring. Like, it's supposed to be the lightweight, springy thing that is compatible with GraalVM. And
They actually have some Spring code in there.
They do.
For real?
Yeah. If you search for Jürgen Haller's name in there, you can see some of the classes they copied out of Spring.
Oh,
But you know what? We didn't have this in the agenda, but didn't Spring have a tweet out about some of their native progress they've been making? I saw that this week.
It's in the agenda.
It is.
We'll get there.
I'm
We're
getting
getting
ahead of things. I'm sorry.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll talk about Disney and Spring. But yeah, no. So and that was like the thing. Like I wondered, and who was it that was leading the
Graham.
No.
Yeah.
That's right. And he moved to Oracle, right?
Yep. Oracle. It's I haven't heard a lot of what he's been doing since because we moved to Oracle, but Oracle had a competing framework to Micronaut. Was it Helion? Is that the right one?
No, that's right.
They have Helidon, and that's actually
Helidon. That was what it was.
Hold on.
Microprofile. I don't know that it's competing. I really don't know that Micronaut competes with Java EE or Helidon. I mean, you can say it competes with Spring, but I really just think of it as another tool in the shed because there's lots of different things that, sometimes one framework does things better than another, So I don't really pit those two against each other, Helidon and Micronaut. But the last I knew, he was still heading this project within Oracle.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, no. So the interesting part was I thought that's usually when you get somebody who's like the founder and moves away from the project, you're always worried if the project is still gonna float, or if it's or is it gonna sink, and that they actually released 2.4.0, then that's at least that's good news. I don't know the adoption rates because I don't know if there's a way to find that out, but at least it's still alive and kicking, and having a healthy ecosystem means to have a little bit of variety of frameworks, like Josh said, choices, right? So
yeah, and I really do think this one will stick. I mean, this really kind of took over Grails, right? Because I'm not sure that they're really evolving Grails anymore, but you really have to have one good framework for Groovy. I mean, Groovy is still very popular. And this, I would say, would be the main web framework now for Groovy if you wanted to use, Groovy for a web application.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is its claim to fame was really the native space, and I think they were an early mover on that. It's definitely a more competitive space now.
Than it was before.
Than it was before. I think a lot of other frameworks have, like Quarkus is also in that space where they're again, claim to fame is all the native compilation features. Right. But yeah, no, follow up for us to follow adoption. Maybe we'll get some information on that for a future episode.
Yeah. We'll start creating surveys. All right. Next one, Microprofile All-RA will be 1.0 and it's currently milestone 1.
So I just wanted to throw this in here because I thought it was a quite important one for people to take a look at with respect to web services. This is a Microprofile long-running actions spec. And this one actually is for standardizing in a way to introduce an API for loosely coupled services to coordinate long-running activities in such a way as to guarantee a globally consistent outcome without the need to take locks on data.
Like batching? Like batching?
Well, is this like...
Stole the words right out of my mouth.
I know, right?
Is this a standard for the Saga pattern?
I guess so, but
Might
it would
be.
actually be under the Microprofile umbrella, and looking for something that would go with the Java EE, Jakarta EE, Microprofile area.
Interesting. So what do you call it? The Saga?
The Saga pattern, which is a way of orchestrating transactions across microservices, transactions with air quotes here, because you can't have transactions across multiple microservices, right? The boundaries don't work. So there's a pattern called the Saga pattern that implements that kind of concept with compensating logic and whatnot. You can read about it, but this feels like, hey, congratulations, you wrote a standard on the pattern. Obviously, I've literally read as much as what Josh just read, so I don't know anything more about it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm not really too knowledgeable on this particular spec myself, but I thought it was a good thing to mention it because they are doing a 1.0 here very soon, and so right now it's in a milestone, and it would be a good thing to check out at this point if you haven't already. If you're looking to find something like this, an API.
It's definitely interesting. The link you had in our doc was to the repo. Is there like an actual website about docs and stuff? Never mind, here we go.
There's a website for all of the microprofile specs. I probably should have put that in the notes. I apologize.
Okay. We'll get it there. We'll get it there when we publish.
And I thought that Saga was an acronym, but apparently it's just how they named the thing.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was like acid, right? No, it's a Saga.
They mentioned that and Saga in the Open Liberty blog link that you got in here. It was funny because I actually searched the Git repo for Saga and it did not exist in any of the code. So they've gone and written all this code without actually calling any of it Saga. But you look at the Open Liberty blog and they are definitely associating it with the Saga. So the association's more clear.
Interesting. All right.
Got it.
I guess next on the news. And this is very apropos. JDK 16 is finally out. So by the time you can listen to this podcast, the bits are going to be out. You can download it. You can play with it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and this is the last one before the next LTS.
Yep.
So I mean, this one's really important as far as setting up what's going to be in that.
Sure, and for me personally, I think a couple of the big things have already been in preview for a while now, particularly the records and pattern matching for the instance of operator. I think that those couple of features really could just help the way people develop applications, regular developers, not even API developers per se, but just regular standard Java developers every day could use those.
Yeah, those are gonna be like, because like if you ever had to do like an instance of and again, if you want to get like very theoretical about it, there's some people that says the moment you did an instance of, you failed at designing your architecture, but it's not like that. There are cases where you just get into corner and you just do have to do instance stuff. So that pattern match is going to be fun, and records is going to be extra fun too. So those are interesting things. What I'm sharing here is essentially the Oracle blog post that Shara did on the release. This is essentially the number of features that have been introduced. Of course, Java 8 was huge. Java 9 has even more because of the refactoring that we're doing with the modules. And then the one that I thought was interesting is, essentially this JDK 16 was, it always been like all the JDK releases have always been essentially a group of companies going together and doing it. But it used to be extremely heavy on the Oracle side. Now, and this one here on JDK 16 is starting to show that because of the way that like Oracle has embrace open source, that older companies are really making a bigger and a bigger claim on like fixing things and participating in the essentially in making the JDK better. So I thought that this graph was interesting where, yeah, the majority is Oracle, but you can see the other players that are now like, propping up in a, bigger footprint than before.
Even some non-US companies like SAP and Tencent from China. I mean, you're starting to see JDK development go global. I mean, company-wise. I mean, it's always been global developer-wise, but
Huawei, Alibaba.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I'm surprised Azul is smaller. I would have thought they would be bigger, but
yeah.
And now that's interesting. There's the independent.
Yeah, that's a
huge.
That is
chunk.
a big box.
People
I guess I should get on that.
The Azul thing. Keep in mind, this is, I believe, the number of issues fixed. So
not lines of code or
exactly
okay.
The ones Azul is fixing are
right?
probably a little harder to actually tackle than the average one out there.
Yeah, right. Like you're fixing a comment on a file versus a race condition of G1GC, right? Like
exactly. Yeah.
But it's good to see. You've got big companies, Amazon in there, ARM at the chip level. So this looks.
There.
I mean, if you're looking at the Java is dead comment, which comes up every single year,
every month,
this is
now.
a good argument against that. You've got all the largest companies in the world contributing to this, so it's probably going to last a little bit longer, at least.
Yeah, I think like everything else is like all the naysayers, and it's like, yeah, no, it's too big to just be abandoned like in 5 years, like because that's what I always hear. It's like, oh yeah, in 5 years it's going to be irrelevant. It's like, COBOL is not irrelevant. They tend to stick.
Yep.
Didn't buy cigars to go around, but maybe we should do a cheers for JDK 16 since it was born today, huh?
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Salud. All right. So go ahead. If you're listening to the podcast, go download. If you have SDK Man, you know what to do. If not, you can use the Adapt OpenJDK to download the banners if you're on Windows. Actually, I moved to WSL on Windows completely. I used to use Cygwin, which is the Linux-like operating thing that you can put on top of Windows to make it pretend it's Linux. But now with Windows Assistant for Linux and WSL1, I uninstall it and I don't miss it. You have a Ubuntu experience and you can download and use all the goodies of SDK Man and real native, because real native Linux commands, because Cygwin is still was a little bit interpreted, but WSL just right in. So
I still need to do that. I still got Cygwin.
No. There is the one thing I learned is there's WSL1 and WSL2, and WSL1 is very fast on the I/O if you're sharing drives or sharing mounts or symlinks between your Windows partition and your Linux partition.
Okay.
WSL2 is slower because it does a native translation of the file system, but it honors things like for example your permissions, because that's the biggest incompatibility there is between Windows and Linux. Permissions. Yeah, the permissions on the Linux file system is very, very granular to the groups and stuff like that, right? So for building or for compiling, I didn't care about the permissions because most of the stuff I needed to be everyone anywhere. So WSL1 with a symlink to my Windows side, so I can run IntelliJ on the Windows side. But if I need to use Gradle builds or anything like that, I can just go to Ubuntu and symlink it to the Windows folder, and that works amazing. So tips and tricks. All right. Next on the news. Okay, now this is yours, Michael. Take it away.
Yes, that's what I was
speaking of Growl in spring. So yes, Spring released Spring Native 0.9, and so this is our beta release of our functionality around running Spring on Growl. We've got a lot of cool features in here. We've got tools in there. We've got some annotations to help you navigate the pitfalls of native compilation with, handling reflection and that kind of thing. We've support a large chunk of the Spring portfolio. You get support out of start.spring.io, so you can, grab, they've got the dependencies right there, so you can try it out just like you would any other Spring project. We've got ahead of time transformations and all that kind of stuff. And since it is a beta, we're finally to a point where it's like, if something's broken, let us know. Before it was like, if it was broken, we probably already knew about it, but we're working on it now. If you find something broken, let us know. Don't get me wrong; it's not perfect. We're still working on things. It's reason it's 0.9 and not 1, right? But just to give you an example, so I apologize in advance if I pronounce it incorrectly. I believe it's Julien Dubois. Is that how you pronounce his name?
As far
I
as
believe
we
it's how you
know.
pronounce his name.
Looks good on my box.
Yes. Yeah. So he's one of the developer advocates in Java at Microsoft. And so he took his Azure functions and reactive Spring samples and just updated them, kind of saw what would happen. And so, he was able to simplify his build. He was able to, everything just really for him, at least, just worked. His build is much simpler, runs locally easily on his Mac. It has a ton of more springy features that weren't there before. He talks about how his the build ends up being 15.1 megabytes, and it starts on shell.azure.com, which are very small machines, probably even smaller than those on Azure Functions. It still start up in 56 milliseconds.
Oh, that's amazing.
The Spring application. So, so I encourage anybody, if you have any interest in native Spring, in GraalVM and you're a Spring user, definitely take the time and check this out. We're looking for your feedback and want to hear from you.
Yeah, no, I know. Go ahead.
It's pretty awesome. And then my question would be, Spring does support Kotlin, doesn't it?
Yep.
So you could use Kotlin with this as well, right?
I haven't tried it. I will defer to Sebastian on that one. I don't see why not, because it actually does a Java build first and then translates like the class.
Yeah, so the bytecode.
Right. So in theory, I don't see why it wouldn't work, but it's one of those things. Try it out and let us know.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Full disclosure, the guy who does most of our Kotlin work is the same guy working on the native stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if it works, but full disclosure.
So just quick question, Michael. I haven't looked at a lot of the Spring native stuff. I know some of the frameworks like Quarkus that I've looked at have almost entire forks of dependencies and things to make it work with native. Any of that stuff in Spring, or did you guys find
not at all
ways around it? That's awesome.
We will not do that. We took that stance early on that we will not monkey patch other people's code. Yep. It's not good for the community. It's not good for us. It's unmaintainable in the long term. And so we really felt that in order for us to do a native approach, we need to work with the community and get things working in the community. And so we have worked with the folks at Hibernate. We have worked at the folks on other community projects. Actually, it's funny. One of the guys on the team does a bunch of JUnit work, and he was actually working on getting JUnit working on native. Like,
I mean,
cool.
Yeah,
good stuff.
So short answer is no. We have not and will not monkey patch or fork other projects to make it work.
And I think like that was one of the things. Like I was talking with Josh Long, and we were going over this. And I think that you folks talked to the Growl team as well to what would it take for us to generate this? Essentially, a lot of what I saw was doing is analyzing and figuring out, these are the hints that GraalVM needs, and this is a way for them to consume the hints. So there was some work on Growl and the Spring team to figure out how can we tell you these things in a compatible way without us having to do the quote unquote monkey patching. And then that's cool. It's like just
to be transparent, like that, when outside of like Spring Framework and what it does, which is a lot lower level than a lot of the other workloads, a lot of the workload specific stuff has been exactly what you're describing. It's a class with a bunch of annotations that describe hints for what needs reflection access and what doesn't, and that kind of thing. Like that's what we did for Batch, for example. Batch was still working on one lower level problem before I can officially say Batch is supported. But to get the basics around Batch running, it's one class. I'd add one class to the native project with, this is a list of stuff I need.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's awesome.
And to be transparent, like if you're doing things like that in your projects, that's what I would expect you to have to do as well.
All right. So we'll put it on the show notes. if you're craving that speed, download it. And it's technically it's super easy. Like if the technologies that you're using happen to be the ones that are like part of the Spring Native supported technologies, then it is a matter of adding the dependencies and having the couple more targets. So that's fun. That's super fun. All right. Next one is the JVM survey. So who wrote this one in?
No one's going to claim. Well, I mean, I didn't put it in, but I will say why it's important. It is one of the larger JVM surveys out there. It is one that I follow personally. So Simon Maple, I think, is one of the originators of this survey, and that was back when he was at Zero Turnaround. He's now at SNCC. So they're still doing a lot of the JVM surveys. It's basically a survey they send out to the developer community to say, hey, what JVM are you on? What frameworks are you using? What IDEs are you using? So it is a survey that gets a lot of circulation. It is one that I send to my clients as far as just, hey, what are the trends in Java right now? So they're looking right now, it's not the results, they're looking for participation. So if you're a developer and you want to, get involved and comment on what you're using, what, version of Java you're on, to just kind of help people gauge where the community's at and where they should be focusing their time, this is the survey to get involved with.
Yeah, no, it's like Brian Beamer is the one who posted the blog.
Yeah, I think he's running it now. I think Simon has handed it off. He has bequeathed it. But
both of them great guys.
What I remember from back in the day.
So let's help the community out. Spend a couple minutes if you can, fill it up.
Yeah, I think do they still have the DevOps for Kids donation too on it? I feel like that's a survey they do, the DevOps for Kids donation too, if you fill it out. So good. Your time goes to fund kids programming activities. So definitely.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it says here, by submitting your answers to the survey, you're not only helping the community with sharing your data, but you can also help our charity goals for the year. Once we get to 2,000 responses, we'll donate $1,000 to DevOps for Kids. And if we exceed 5,000 responses, we'll top that up to 2,000. So yeah.
Script to generate responses coming.
Yep. Everything is Java 7. I was getting like a weird one, right? Like you're either on 6 or 8, but nobody stays on 7.
Nobody
went to 7.
Nobody
stayed on 7. Nobody went
like
to
the
7.
9. That's like the 9 now. Yeah.
Oh God.
We're in prod on 9. I mean, that's said.
Oh my gosh.
What feature are you stuck with?
Right.
There for a reason. What is the feature?
What is it
Exactly?
Who did this to you?
Web start. No.
Oh God. Oh, that is true. That is true. I think like a lot of the applet stuff was removed on 8.
That's true.
All right. The next one. I think Bob, you discovered this one.
Oh, what is? Oh, yeah. So Humio, which is a logging company, and one of our good friends, Gita Schmidt,
Yep.
is their CEO. Just recently got acquired by CrowdStrike. So congrats to them.
Yeah.
Their big claim to fame is just a kind of an unlimited logging. I think it's a lot of the stuff is written in what is it, Kafka? I believe it's Kafka is one of their big technologies. But I don't know, just as far as a lot of this goes, just still seeing a lot of the consolidation in the industry. This one hit a little bit close to home. Guido, we know from
The GoTo conference.
GoTo conference. That's right.
Yeah.
GoTo conference before she became, super famous as the CEO of this company. But yeah, no, they got bought. So just more stuff to just kind of keep an eye on in the technology space consolidating. So
I guess they're considered a competitor to Splunk.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a logging framework
management.
and yep.
Ah, that's interesting. Ooh. All right. We know that we're happy for her. Like,
Yes.
and we'll see where they go. Haven't heard too much about CrowdStrike. I guess they are are they considered like a fund, funders, or
So I'm going to be 100% transparent. I had actually not really heard of CrowdStrike before the acquisition. Like I had heard of Humio, but had not really heard much of CrowdStrike. So I mean, I don't really have a whole lot of information on that, of what the combination is there.
Cybersecurity. Okay. So yeah, they're in the cybersecurity space.
Okay.
Ooh, that could be an interesting synergy right there. So, wow, fun places. All the places people will go. It's gonna be fun. All right. Next on the agenda. Another acquisition.
So yeah, another acquisition. So Octa acquires Auth0. So this one has a lot more kind of closer alignment because I've heard of both of those technologies. So Octa being in this, again, security space, authentication space, Auth0 being another company in authentication. Octa bought them. Again, the big authentication companies get bigger. And Octa, man, I've had a number of clients actually.
Yeah.
They really did. Like it was a company that I hadn't heard of probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And now it's like half
everywhere.
Of my clients use Octa at least.
Yeah.
That one's a little easier to explain.
No, I didn't.
We have our friend Matt Rabel, who is at Octa. So
J Hipster
man.
Yeah,
We've got some inside baseball there, but
yeah. So they're doing well. Yeah, like it's interesting because Auth0. I sometimes when I'm like signing up for stuff, I will say the ability to go through Auth0, but I haven't heard it as much as Octa. I guess a lot of Octa is also more enterprise grade. I see it in corporations. That's the big.
I mean, most of my clients are big clients, so I mean, I don't usually work in mid to small cap. So I mean, that's the space I'm in, and that's the space that they're you don't usually see folks move so quickly in the authentication space because it takes them. I mean, a lot of them are still just using AD, so it's like stuff from the late 90s, LDAP, AD, SAML.
Gosh.
Still see a lot of that. Still see a ton of that.
Microsoft LDAP.
But yeah, within the last 2 or 3 years, it's probably about half or have Octa now. So it's
wow.
It's a very fast moving space.
Yeah. No. So So and that is interesting because like even integrating with them and like I did a couple of projects integrating. It's not hard at all. Like they figured all that stuff out. So it's a pleasant developer experience. So and maybe that's a trick. Make your developers happy and your technology gets accepted
It's
everywhere.
true. They did get a lot of advocates that we know. So here they are. So I guess the next one also has man. We're just like on a security hit.
Like, yeah.
And we still won't be done.
So I didn't add this one. Does anybody want to talk about the SolarWinds thing?
I'm pretty sure I'm the one that added it.
Yeah.
So SolarWinds, the SolarWinds hack that everybody's heard about. One of the angles that has been pointed to with regards to the breach was that a Team City server was set up using default or very, very, very simple credentials. And now SolarWinds, as of a couple of weeks ago, is blaming an intern as the person that set this up.
Which is,
Cop
like,
out.
That is not your intern. That is like everybody else but your intern.
But I mean, it is a good warning to a lot of companies because I mean, so Team City is continuous integration, continuous delivery. So it's a build server.
Yep.
And the number of places I've seen that haven't secured a Jenkins box or a Team City or, just any of their build processes is a fairly high percentage. So there's a lot of places that have a lot of credentials in their build process that if you were able to get access to that, you could do some pretty significant damage. And that's essentially what happened here. So you have a Team City server with a weak password and you have build servers that have elevated credentials, and that is your Trojan horse in. So, I mean, you can blame the intern, but at the end of the day, your security policy and all the folks up the chain there are just as much to blame as anybody else, if not more.
Yeah. So it's funny that I laugh when I see these kinds of things come out because, so in a previous life, I worked for a security company called TrustWave, and one of the guys there, Jonathan Claudius, did a talk back in 2013. So this is now 8 years ago, about securing continuous integration services. Specifically he talks about attacking enterprises via attacking their source code. So thinking about, does your CI server have Git access? Can it push a commit? Can it do those kinds of things? And he actually released at the time a tool to audit, this kind of thing. He'd run basically his job in your CI system, and it'll basically dump all the credits and see what it's got access to. So the tool is called Rotten Apple, but it's this isn't a new idea. This is like hacking printers. Another very typically vulnerable piece of the enterprise, right? Nobody worries about securing a printer yet. It's a fully blown computer that's got Telnet, FTP, like it's got all the services that you want to be able to attack. So and the thing that frustrates me is the idea that you could blame an intern for something like this. It's just wrong. It's immoral. It really is immoral to place this kind of thing on an intern's shoulders when like an intern's there to learn, which means you have to assume, however smart they are, however great of an intern they are, they still don't have the chops. So they're there to learn from you. So I place this on whoever was the management responsible for that intern.
Yeah. No, and that is one of the things. It's like it's a failure for like securing your crown jewels and it's almost like hopefully the servers. I really hope that the CI/CD servers were not accessible from they were just on the internal network and never exposed. But then
Think.
Yeah.
First looking into getting something like 1Password or something to some tool like that to generate random passwords that you can use for these things that will not be easily hackable. And The other nice thing about a tool like that is that, you can store your passwords in there and it will tell you if it's vulnerable or if it's been compromised or something like that. So just something to think about.
Yeah, security policy is the.
It's probably the way to
here.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're allowing a password with, that basically has the name of the service and 1, 2, 3 after it, you're asking for trouble. That's not even brute force at that point. That's me guessing.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, like for service passwords, which are not user monitored at all, right? Like those fall into different category where it is supposed to be behind an LDAP or Octa service or something like that, where you have that kind of validation on that end, right? So there's a lot of question marks, like that how did it got to that point? Like there's having a lot of process that has to be either ignored or violated or not even considered for it to got to that way. It's not the interns' fault.
Yeah, somebody gave them root access and a server with unlimited authority.
You did this yourself. It's
all too common though. It's just
yeah. All right. Next one. I'm not sure.
This is you, Freddie, I think.
Oh, yeah. So this is essentially a question mark. Charles Nutter was asking, when you create a new file, like in your code, there's usually the boilerplate copyright and stuff like that, company name, blah, blah, blah. But there's always this discussion about should you put the author on the files that you created? And sort of it's always a fun discussion. I think it's settled, but I'm just gonna ask this group, what do you guys think?
Author tags.
Yeah, go ahead.
Spring uses author tags, and I'm a supporter of them. Spring's copyright is copyright of the original authors, so it serves as a convenience as well, so you can literally see in the author tag who the copyright would be associated with. So there is a slight legal spin there. Now, granted, it's not all encompassing, but usually if you've contributed something meaty enough to warrant adding to worry about copyright, you would add a tag to it. I also like it from just a pure open source perspective to be able to give people credit. I get the whole argument that Charles and company make about, version control does a better job of tracking, who made what changes and blah, blah, blah. That's not what the author tags are for. The author tags have nothing to do with tracking changes on a file because they show no association, right? They don't, you don't have an author tag per line. You don't have an author tag per change. It's on a file. And it's just a list of people who've touched that file over history. So I like it as just a way from a contributor's perspective to be able to give a little thanks, give them a little credit. As a contributor, that's a big deal to see your name in that code.
Or the blame.
Well, that's what Git's for. I don't need to blame. I don't use blame for the author tag. That's Git. Git has the functionality. Git blame, and that's.
I was going to say it's interesting because the Apache Software Foundation is usually actually on the other end of the spectrum. Is there are a few projects that do use author tags, but project to project, it's kind of culturally one of those things that's determined at a project level. There isn't a foundation level guidance on author tags, but most of the projects actually explicitly tell committers not to use author tags. And I guess part of it is usually with the license, you're assigning copyright to the foundation. So
so in your case, it is okay.
Copyright of who made it from a legal standpoint is not all that relevant. So, and really it's the culturally, it's supposed to be a community maintained file. Once you donate a file to the foundation, it's really becomes a part of the project. It's not owned by you. So in many cases, projects have gone away from the author tag in order to encourage that file to be more community owned rather than by an individual, because they've seen with an author tag, a specific person will become very attached to it and say, oh, well, this is my land.
I mean,
every commit
it's author,
to it,
right? It's not owner. It's author. It's not
yes, owner. In theory, I agree with you. But I think in practice, it has led to that kind of contention within foundation projects.
If you see James Gosling as the author of some file, you're not going to just go in there and change it, right? You're going to want to ask.
He is way smarter than what I am. It's like, I'm not going to touch this guy. Well, and just to give a complete picture, right? Like author tags were default for many, many reasons. Like, because I guess before the open source movement where there could be many contributors, usually it was like, oh, I created this. This is my author tag, right? But then it started cropping up in literature, and I don't remember where I started reading about it, but there was a lot of movement against author tags because they say like, first of all, whoever is maintaining it or whoever created the file may not even work there. So there's even if the original purpose was to sort of like hunt down, oh, who did this file? Maybe they know something about it, right? The other part then that came in is like it does what Josh is saying. Like sometimes you are like think about like twice about contributing to somebody's file because, oh gosh, this author must have known what he was doing or she was doing, and I'm not gonna mess with that, or I might need to ask permission before I change it, which goes against a lot of the community part, right? Like or like the even open source or inner source where you're trying to like contribute to somebody else's project, right? Third is hard to keep up to date. Like even if you say like I'm going to modify it so now the author is me, or put a long string of authors and stuff like that, it becomes problematic. And I think I remember
I call bullshit on that argument.
I think that was the Linux Foundation. I think it was the Linux Foundation. Maybe it was the Linux Foundation, the one that I started reading about it. Like they discourage having author tags, but that is certainly the story. And one thing I want to call out is so this originally came from a tweet from Charles Nutter, who asked, and I quote, Java peeps, Java doc author tags, love them or lump them. I don't know if he meant lump them or dump them. Yeah.
But there's a nuance further into the thread that is easy to miss. He calls out JRuby as author tags that are 20 years old in files that have almost been completely rewritten since then. I really want to delete them, but it feels, I don't know, rude is his tweet. And now that's a different question altogether. Do you ever delete author tags, even if the file is basically not their contribution anymore? Right. I know in Spring I'm 99% sure we don't.
Yeah, and that's, I think, to your point, even about credit. I mean, and that's what you feel like you're taking away from somebody when you delete that. It's like you did this, or you were the originator of this, and now I'm taking away. And I guess, to help mitigate that, a lot of projects have a contributors page, like a site page where it's HTML, or you put the names in the POM file. A lot of projects have it where there's the developer tag and a Maven POM where you can add IDs. And again, it's not quite the same, but
that's really hard to do on an open source project.
It tries to get to the fact of giving credit to people, because I totally, that point totally resonates with me of why you would want to have an author tag to say, yes, this was your original idea, and man, we wouldn't be here without you. But the complexities around it, I think, is the reason why I've kind of leaned against author tags. And I think the foundation, Apache, the foundation in general, most projects do not use them.
I mean, do you know of any standards? Like on GitHub, there's the idea that a repo has a README is a kind of a standard thing. A license file is a standard thing. A contributors is a standard thing. Or it's not a contributors. It's what is it? Contributions or code of conduct.
Yeah.
But like, is there any kind of standard file for like contributors, like just listing them out?
I know in
guess
Apache there isn't. Now
Is that,
in
is
any
that, is
open
that
source,
GitHub,
I don't
right?
know.
Is that? I mean, if we're talking about GitHub,
See
is that,
who contributed
Yeah.
to it. You go to the little graph or
Like,
whatever,
yeah,
and then you
right?
can see numbers and
Okay,
rankings and all that
there
good
is that.
stuff.
There is that.
Yeah, I don't know that there is. I mean, some projects actually do have a contributors page. You know, the approach I like is, again, if you have a set governance process of who are committers, who's a matter, who is past contributors and metarists, you just put them on an HTML page so people can see where credits due if they want to see names for whatever reason. But yeah, the author tag is one way, I guess, to do it. And you can probably generate a contributor thing off of that. But there's a lot of people that don't create files that are just as important to projects. And if you were just generating contributors off of author tags, there would be a lot of people you'd probably miss.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Java EE files in NetBeans that I've modified and whatnot, right? And the author tag on that, if there is one, is probably very old and has nothing to do with me. So it's probably more accurate to go off the version control system, I'd say.
And it's interesting because it feels that for an internal source for an inner source project, or for a project that is like corporate private, right? Like I guess there might be, like, if you're big enough, there might be that recognition factor, but most of it is utilitarian. Like you're looking for who make this change because you have questions about, like I rarely will go and try to figure out, oh, this piece of code is brilliant, who contributed to this? Like it's more of like who in the right mind wrote this line and why?
And Freddie doesn't get blamed and finds out it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the worst part. It's like self-slapping. It's like
Oh yeah.
it has happened. So yeah. So I guess, like, internally, that's why, like, I almost like no opinion on, like, should I have it or should I remove it? Like, I know that by default, I think IntelliJ shows it in, but like, yeah, for open source projects, yeah, that's a different ballgame altogether. And it's kind of funny that there's, like, the two opposite ranges on that too. So yeah, I guess no resolution on that. It's just there are different opinions on it. All right, so okay, next one, Growl. That's you, Bob.
Yeah, so Java on truffle. So the Growl has been able to run other languages, and in fact, that's kind of been before the native compilation, that was the thing that Growl was really about. It's being able to run JavaScript or Ruby or Python or R on the JVM, but now they've actually added Java to the mix. So I mean, if you wanted to run different versions of Java, if you wanted to be able to basically just run Java almost like virtualized on its own VM on Truffle, you can do that now. So just kind of an interesting evolution of the Growl framework, where now it's not only every language other than Java itself now runs on Truffle. So another thing to play with in the Growl ecosystem.
Yeah, and just to quote what they say, like Java, let's say Java Truffle is introduced in GraalVM 21, which was published on January 19. GraalVM 21 has installable component called Espresso that makes it possible to run Java code via a Java bytecode interpreter implemented with the Truffle framework. In addition to the bytecode interpreter, Java on Truffle provides other core components of a Java virtual machine, including a single pass class file parser, a simple object model, and a Java native interface implementation. So Java 8 and Java 11 are supported. So it's like the Truffle framework is like for creating these interpreters, and apparently, like, it comes with a lot of goodies once you manage to essentially implement a language on top of the Truffle framework as an interpreter. So interesting stuff. Like what that's telling me is right now it's not the pain, but one of the pain points of creating native images or actually running GraalVM is that it takes more time to build, right? Like that is, and you sort of expect that because it's like you're sort of like trying to do all kind of like close-ended resolutions. You're essentially trying to analyze the bytecode to a point where you can actually say like, okay, if this is making a call into other places, I need to figure out how to like make that connection. So there's interoperability. So what this tells me is that process, because now they're using the truffle framework, which is what is being used for the other languages, is going to go faster. So that's kind of fun.
There's so many vast, topics to discover and to explore with GraalVM. I'm just wondering, I've only barely sunk my teeth into it. How many job positions are out there now that are specifically calling for GraalVM? This could be a whole discussion topic on its own, I know that. But, has GraalVM become something of, a focus point for developers now that, this is something that we should be kind of diving into to learn more about all these different areas? Or
and then they all require 10 years experience, Growl.
That's like 12 years of experience in GraalVM. But like, okay, so the way I see it, or the way we've been seeing it is there won't be. I don't think this is for everyone. Meaning like it's not like let's say JSON, right? Like everybody should know JSON because we all use JSON for everything, right? This will be more of you are on the performance side of the spectrum, and you are specializing in that area. Then that skill becomes extremely useful. And the reason why is because there's been a shift, right? Like before, usually having a 10% improvement in a program, let's say, if you have a server that was underutilized, it didn't do anything. Like it was almost a point where you did not need to optimize code if you were not using all the capacity that you used to have on the servers that you were provisioned on. That sort of like started changing with virtual machines at the beginning, like when you have this sort of like hypervisors and all this kind of virtualization. And then once that actually went all the way down with Docker and like the cloud providers where they charge you per CPU cycle, suddenly they really actually charge you for like every cycle that you use. So if you make a 10% reduction on a particular software path or something that you created, that if you're paying like $20 million for you have a big cloud infrastructure, that means like you're actually saving $2 million. That's more than a salary and a half for somebody just to concentrate and do that work, right?
Yeah.
So I think the way that is shaping up is that not everybody will learn it. But for those who want to or are interested in performance, it's a very, very nice proposition, because then what happens is, especially if you're working on an enterprise that has a big cloud infrastructure, and that's how they decided to sort of, and to be fair, like a lot of companies are exiting out of on-prem, going to some kind of hybrid cloud or actual cloud. These make a big contribution. Like, startup times, less memory profile, 20%, 10-15% of CPU gain just by dropping it and making a GraalVM sort of like a native image, right? So that's how I feel it.
Yeah, I see a similar situation where there are really two concrete use cases that for the GraalVM, in my opinion. I keep getting people bringing up a third one, although I'm still not sold on it. So the first ones are the ones Freddie called out. So more efficient resource utilization. So AWS, you can use smaller EC2 instances because they use up less memory and less CPU. That saves money.
Or ECS.
The bean counters get that. It's a kind of a no-brainer. That's one. The second one, short up startup time, but for a specific use case, which is functions. Like if you think of AWS Lambda, using a JVM or a traditional JVM is not a practical option. It takes too long to get up and warm up and that kind of thing.
But they're amortized though, right? Like even
Yeah,
that is
there are hacks around that and whatnot. But I mean, I've seen people that literally have written frameworks that will ping a phone to keep it live because of that startup time. It's like, isn't the whole point of functions to scale to zero? And now you're specifically saying you're not going to scale to zero because it takes too damn long to start back up.
Yep.
So like this introduces Java in a more natural way into that kind of an architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two that I'm sold on. I get it. Makes sense. The third one that I've heard people throw around that I'm not completely sold on is auto scaling. So you have apps, let's say it's a web app, and you want to be able to scale quickly, dynamically. So just based on reaction to traffic, you want to be able to scale, quickly, from 1 to 10 server instances, let's say. The reason I'm not completely sold on that is maybe it's just me, but I don't think the JVM startup time is typically the hole in that tent. If you're talking about warming up caches, if you're talking about, registering routes and with your data, with your, load balancers and all that kind of stuff. Exactly. Like there are other things that are still going to make it so that the startup of the JVM by itself isn't the deciding factor on whether or not you can do that. Again, just my 2 cents on that, but I don't know if I'm sure there are some use cases it would work, some cases it wouldn't. I know like Netflix is almost completely walked away from from what I know, from that whole dynamic scaling model, because it just doesn't scale. Seriously, it takes too long to start up and get the instances. They use the Super Bowl problem as an example. So the Netflix traffic super high, right? Super Bowl starts, drops like a rock. It spikes over at halftime. So the game goes to halftime, spikes back up, and then the game starts, drops back down. If they just do a traditional reaction to traffic style scaling, by the time they get the servers up to respond to the traffic, the game's back on, everybody's left. So they have to actually schedule out, okay, the game's going to go to halftime at this time. We're going to get capacity in place before then. And then, 30 seconds after the game goes back, we'll take that capacity back. Like they have that all scheduled out.
No, and that is interesting because that is like ideally, right? Like the way that this was supposed to work was like you get sort of like this ebb and flow that is, quote unquote, at least with some semblance of normal distribution where it starts picking up, and then you get enough sort of like leeway, you can sort of figure out your acceleration rate so you can get ahead of it and you can spin up farms, or whatever, you can scale up as you need it to, right? But there were like sort of like two models in it. Like I remember the first one was the one that is more traditional, is like CPU pressure or memory pressure or one of these other pressures, right? Like you feel that your CPU is hovering over 80%, and then you say, okay, time to scale up. Or there is the other ones that Netflix started pioneering for a while, which is like, no, let's do predictive. Let's take essentially the second derivative of that and then start looking at trends to get ahead of instead of you hitting the 80%. Oh, we know that in 2 hours you're going to hit it, so I'm going to start, warming up from now. I see it. The idea is that if something takes 20 minutes, that is as fast as you can respond to these kind of events. If you can make that from 20 minutes to a minute, then that's amazing. And I think, Michael, you're right. Usually the problem is not necessarily the JVM startup being those 20 minutes or scanning it. Is just the way that we connect to every other data source in the whole world, and you're like downloading everything, getting cache warmed up, loading all your configurations and all that stuff. And
an important note with that is Growl, to my knowledge, does not improve I/O. It's CPU and memory, but from a raw getting bits off the disk, getting bits through network, that doesn't improve with Growl. Java is already extremely well performant with that. And so because of that, those things like loading caches and loading off files off a disk and those kinds of things, you don't get a benefit with Growl.
Yeah. Maybe, and the reason I say maybe is because like to be IO bound, it probably means like first of all, there's a lot of nuance in that, right? Like the first one is like if I never seen a card on a data center to be pegged at 10 gigabits per second. Usually something else gives in first. Like there's not enough data on the data cluster. You got the thundery hair problem, so that's why you get a trickle of stuff. Like I definitely agree that you know if
That network, but I agree on the network perspective, but on you know, disk buses, like you can saturate a disk bus relatively easily with just straight Java. Like that's not hard to do.
yeah, and that's
Like getting bits off disk.
And it's interesting because like with the ephemeral nature of like how people are working right now, right? Like I find myself going less and less to disk. Like the services I write don't rely on disk anymore. Huh?
I'm the batch guy.
You're good. Well, okay. I didn't have a reason to go to disk anymore, right? Like everything is because that's the problem, right? Like Docker container, unless you do, there is song and dance that you can do to have persistent storage, but the idea is that and I don't know if that's a lot
Somewhere
of it
data hits disk. Somewhere data always hits disk. Like
or network.
If you're using a database, you're hitting disk.
Yeah, but those
if
guys
you're
are
using MySQL, it's hitting disk somewhere. It's not on your box, but it's on somebody's box. That's still a threshold that you're gonna have.
And it should not saturate the network. Like this write should be faster than what you can push out the network. Theoretically, anyways. And there's clusters and all that, right? But going to the example of Growl, I think that usually I find it that if you're taking 10 minutes to start, is probably not that your network saturated. It's probably that your sequencing is not right, or the sources that you are trying to sort of like slurp from the network cannot send you as fast as you can to get that saturation. So that's what I said. Like, agreed. Probably there's nothing to do on network I/O or even file I/O, but chances are that there's probably other places where Growl can benefit for a startup time that you haven't essentially fully flushed out yet. So.
Awesome info. Thank you. It's good to know how people are using it and why they're using it.
Yeah. Now the challenge is that, like everything else, is Growl like this will be the litmus test will be how much adoption does it have for what we'll consider a good set of current and legacy technologies, right? Do JAX-B objects with reflect, and I think JAX-B is part of the Spring Native, where I think I was looking at it, like where they have some tricks for JAX-B, but
I know Jackson is. I don't know about JAX-B. I just thought I don't know it.
I wouldn't, because it does use reflection a lot. But like if there's enough like libraries that a good chunk of the population, because the problem is like Growl, it's almost an all or nothing thing. It's like if there's one library that cannot use Growl, you're like, or cannot use native, you're banned for the project to use native. So
yeah, but just keep in mind, it's not reflection equals non-native. Like you can use like that's a decent chunk of what Spring has done is enable the hints to be able to do the compile time, bytecode generation, to be able to handle that natively. So there's even within the native app, there's even an agent that you can run your app to figure out, okay, what do I need reflective access to? And it'll generate a file that's metadata and all that kind of stuff. So like, just because you're using reflection does not mean you can't go native.
Yes, but the work becomes from very simple to possibly exponentially harder, right? Like that is.
No, I disagree with that. I really do. Like it's been my experience let's put it this way. With the Spring tooling, I can say I disagree with that.
So it's funny because so the two parts of it. The first one is having essentially a scanner when I run this thing in production for detecting my neighbor's native calls. I feel just so apprehensive because
Oh, that's no. You wouldn't run this in production. No, the agent.
No, but but that is how you will do it, right? Like practically, what you want to know is what is the reflection that my application is using, and the only way.
Honestly, you run a full build with your agent on, and anything is assuming your tests appropriately exercise your code.
It just requires some kind of weird XML that nobody has seen on test to come in and rain on your parade. But that's that's fair. But like, I remember because we did a Growl episode with Bob and we walked through okay, and again, it was not saying that it can't be done. It definitely can be done, but it was we need the way that we went through, or Bob took us to look, this is what's happening. I need to open this source and look, here it is. Here is the SO call that happened. So you can find the library name that you need to add on the list of allowable SO calls that you need to have. It's not easy.
Seriously, check out the Spring stuff. It's
they
that's give you a lot more
JNI
information.
and including resources, though, Freddie. I think
that's apples and oranges.
That was, so when I was talking about forks in code, I wasn't actually talking about literally having different library releases. It's some of the hacks that you see. Mm-hmm. So where Growl will allow you to do substitution, right? Where I'm going to rewrite what the method does, where it may be based on a properties file. It may be based on reflective access. And I'm just going to say, here, do this. So that I can statically just compile that, and it's not based on any sort of runtime variability. And I can get to native faster by basically taking that method and making it do something static rather than dynamic. And I don't know if Spring is doing any of this thing. Based on what you're saying, Michael, it doesn't sound like they are.
I mean, here I can show you. I can give you an example. So this is so in the Growl code, or in the Spring Native project, you'll see a lot of this, which are these hint classes. So this is the one for batch. It's what I played with. And so basically
resource info. So so basically the SO file example, Freddie, this is including a resource to make sure the resource is included in the native image.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you've got access as well. So I've got this class, I'm going to request that we get this access for reflection. Mm-hmm. This class, this one, these are batch ones that I need to be able to load load constructor and public methods and whatnot. And then for proxies as well, similar situation where you'd identify. So this class, I need a proxy with this other stuff. And so but this is what it took to get Spring Batch to work, except for the custom scopes, which we're still working on.
Oh, Michael, open, expand your line number 1. Let's see if you have the author tag in there.
Not in this one. You'll notice the Java doc should be right here. It's not there.
Michael doesn't want credit for this one.
but this is why I said that with the legality, this is our copyright, original author or authors. And so I guarantee there are ones that were better written than mine that have it in there. At least I hope so.
Oh, this is fun. It's like going into somebody else's closet.
This is not. This isn't my. This isn't my code, so I don't feel too bad going through it. Even this, we don't have the author tags yet.
The linter is not being run.
Yeah, a lot of polish still needs. This is why this isn't a beta still, but
nobody wants credit for this.
No, it's on purpose. But okay, yeah, but yeah, I mean So the theory is that Growl is becoming a thing. It's becoming a thing because it's saving money, and that sort of gives that feedback loop to make it a bigger thing by supporting more things. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Is a fun time to be a Java developer. So
definitely.
All right, and I think with that,
one more.
We're gonna talk. We have one more topic.
Oh, one more.
Microsoft.
One more.
Michael.
Yeah, because of the timeliness. So Microsoft. There's a important Microsoft Exchange vulnerability that has been a lot of these I follow a Krebs on security. It's a security blog, and does amazing work with regards to digging into the different vulnerabilities that you see out in public and whatnot. And one of the things that in his blog posts is he does, patch Tuesdays, like Microsoft their patches on Tuesdays. And like, that's
what
he covers
patch?
what's in there. Exactly. And like, this one was different. This one is not your normal one because they're seeing a huge amount. So I'm trying to find if they've named it or not yet. Yeah, so there's so the attack was it was a week or two ago now. Yeah, it would have been 2 or 3 weeks ago actually. So literally hundreds of thousands of Microsoft Exchange server systems have been compromised and seeded with a powerful backdoor Trojan horse program. And according to the U.S. government, they've identified at least 300,000 different Exchange instances where this has been compromised. And a lot of people are, and basically what the Trojan does is it installs a remote shell, so you can shell in and you own the box basically. And it's they've got the problem right now of yes, it's patched. Yes, there's a fix out there. It's available, but there are just so many that have been hacked. Like everybody's waiting for, okay, what's the bomb that's going to go off here, right? Is this going to be a ransomware thing that just blows up across half the country or around the world? Like I personally have never seen an attack on this many systems around the world at this one. So the rough timeline was Microsoft was notified on January 5th. They reproduced it on January 8th. Proxylogon.com, PROXYLOGON. That's the name of the vulnerability. And if you go to proxylogon.com, that's where they actually explain what it is, how it works, and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. This is something that tens of thousands of Exchange servers have been compromised. With it, to quote the article, tens of thousands of Exchange servers compromised worldwide, with thousands more servers getting freshly hacked each hour.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the White House National Security Advisor tweeted about this and about how important patching this is. It's.
I see. It's like if you're having an Outlook web access server that allows you to log into your Outlook account from home through like a web portal.
Yep.
And then it says like if you find weird characters in your inetpub www root ASP.NET client system web folder, you are done. Oh,
pretty much. Pull it off the internet.
Damn. And you don't know
we'll see.
Well, the problem is like even pulling the plug, you don't know like how far people got, right? Like you're right. You're right.
All it means is pull the plug, so nothing. It can't get any worse.
Yes, and yeah, it's almost like shut down your network and rebuild it, like type of deal. Yep. Oh gosh, that just
on March 12th. On March 12th, Microsoft said there are still 82,000 unpatched Exchange servers exposed. Groups trying to take advantage of this vulnerability are attempting to implant ransomware and other malware that could interrupt business continuity. And that was 4 days ago is when Microsoft made that statement.
Yeah. It's
one of those. The specific CVE is CVE 2021 26855.
God. No, and it is interesting because like just thinking about it, right? Like one of the things you start thinking about, the pandemic is like how pervasive it was, or it is really, because we're still in the middle of it, in the sense that if you think about like how lucky we were in the times where there could be geographical isolation, right? Like if something bad happened in some part of the world, usually people didn't travel as much, sort of like stay there, or things, or there was a factor where spreading something was, took more time than what it took right now, right? Like here we went from January, we discovered something, to March, the whole world has to be in lockdown. And it sort of like has that kind of flavor where like you discovered a vulnerability on such a fundamental piece of technology like Exchange, and suddenly it's like, what can you do? It's like it's so hard to like just snuff out, because like it's gonna be around. Like people are gonna they're not gonna know that their Exchange servers are compromised, and it is just a ticking bomb. So it's a curse and a blessing living in an interconnected world. So I guess the advice for that one is go check if you can access your Outlook or your email by web, and if the web is not like Microsoft.com at the end, meaning like it's internal to your organization, then you might be vulnerable. So
patch your stuff. That's the lesson.
Change your passwords too, probably.
Yeah.
Change your passwords and patch your stuff.
1, 2, 3 at the end of the company name is not a good password. It's crackable. Oh my gosh. All right. Now with that one, I think that's all the news we can cover for today. So, stay safe on this pandemic, and we'll see you on the next one on episode 61. This is Freddie signing off.
Bob signing off.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. Follow us on Twitter at OffHeap. We're only 16 followers away from breaking the 1,000 follower mark, so please help us out.
Yeah, follow us. Come on, we have YouTube video. Do it now. All right, everybody. Happy programming. Woo.